What's going on? Today we're gonna do the front flooring. So just this void up here, we're gonna lay down some of the exercise mat pads. I figured that'd be the best way I can kind of form fit those in there, and then I'll be laying carpet over the top of that. So right now, just gonna be clearing out the seat. There are going to be a couple areas where I will have to cut it out, and I'll be using these posts here as a guide once I set the seat back on there to kind of figure out where I'm going to be at as far as laying down the foam. So we'll get the seat out of here. I have kind of all the panels pulled off and a general idea of where each of my thresholds is going to be as far as how much space I have. So I'll kind of get the layout figured out and make some rough cuts and then try to fit it in there the best I can. So these are the mats I'm going to use. It's just these Lowe's soft linking mats. One thing that does annoy me is it's got these perforations to kind of smooth out the edges. I'll probably just cut those off because I don't want to deal with gluing all that or having that all come up. I'll just cut it off, and I should have more than enough material. I got 2 packs of 4. So that should more than cover this area. Gonna obviously be some custom cuts up and through here, but I think I'll be able to get a good starting point by starting back here and moving forward. I did seal this off with some silicone at the bottom, just to kind of create that barrier there for any moisture to get underneath that. I want to make sure that that's covered. And next, I guess we'll just be cutting these off and making a straight edge there and on the side, and then kind of laying panels down to see where I need to be. So I'm just lining up this straight edge here, and I'm just taking off these notches. So you just want to line it up flush, kind of inside of the recessed part of these notches. You just run your utility knife over nice and easy. Get a score on them. Make sure you're using a nice sharp blade for this. It makes things a lot easier. It won't tear. Doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. It's obviously going to be a little wavy, but that won't really matter because all the carpet's going to be going over, being tucked under someplace or another. So now, as you can see, I cut the 2 flat edges, that side and that side, that will butt up to the door step insert that goes in over that. And this will butt up next to the wood subfloor. Now next, this will interlock into here. And I've got my smooth cut that I made there. And I'll leave this here. This will tie in, and then I'll straight cut this up to here. Then I'll have one solid piece. It'll be all interlocked. That'll all be glued down, glued together. I'll make my cut here once I get everything lined up over there, and I'll tie up this end, and then it'll be about moving forward up into the cavities under the pedals and under the feet here. So now I laid down the step insert to the driver's side just to kind of feel out where I'm going to line up. And I'll just want this just butted up next to this because this will lie flush to the floor. There's a little bit of a cutout here, so I'll just have to make that cut into the foam there once I get that glued in. And I can make that mark. I just want to make sure I get this set and locked in. And I'm just going to have that small gap back there. It'll mostly butt up next to it. But then just getting this interlocked so I can fill in that last piece to see what my measurements are going to be over there, and I'll get that piece cut out. Okay, so I got that last piece cut in. Matches up pretty good here. Next thing to do will be to punch through the seat bolt, and then you can kind of get it laid flat and see where your next connecting pieces are going to be. The other thing I wanted to mention is these have a flat side and they have a textured side. I'm going to put the textured side down because I want that adhesive to really grab in there, have something to hold on to get the best grip I can. I know this is a little bit slippery, but it does have some texture to it as well. So I wanted to make sure that I could get as much adhesion as possible with the base layer here. Okay, now I have the rear seat bolt set into the mat, so I got that lined up flat. So now it's going to be about making the trim on all these curves, starting off with the front engine bay. And I think I'm just going to try to lay the cover over and see where that falls, just so I can get a better understanding of how that will lie and where I can cut that. So what I did is I put that cover on, I tightened down the latches, and now I'm just going to make an outline. You can kind of feel underneath where this rubber's going to line up, which I think would be ideal. You can actually see on the top the indentation of where that rubber ring, that seal kind of wraps around there. So I think I'm going to try to start on that and see where that falls. I can always open it up more if I need to. I can't go back. It seems like that inner ring would work. We'll try that. So I conveniently used the piece of paper that came in the mat package, and I kind of set a baseline spot here and then traced along the contour so I can use this as a template on the piece I'll be cutting, which is that one. So the trick is getting it lined up properly. So you want this and this edge. You want those two edges to line up on the inside insert on both ends. That's kind of your starting point. And then I'm going to kind of cut along this line, and that will be my trace point to cut out from here on. So I'm just going to cut out this template here. And honestly, I'll probably have to take some off. I'm just playing it on the safe side as usual, because I don't want to have to recut this piece again or use a whole new piece. So this should line up. even though it's crooked here, I did make sure to line up these two spots, and then I also had a little angle spot to where I'd be running that through. So I'm hoping that should line up. Should, in theory. So we'll trace this out and then get cut into that. There you go. And that doesn't make any sense, does it? Oh, yes it does. Because you're going to follow that contour. This is going to latch in, you're going to cut through that contour. So that should match up on that contour. And we'll see how it fits. Outside of a few adjustments, that does look pretty good. We'll need to cut this slot out too, because the hatch for this whole thing is underneath here, so to get that slotted out. This may have to come down more too. Alright, I won't bore you with all the tedious trimming, but it is finicky and you kind of got to play around with it. But eventually you get there. Just work off little pieces at a time because you don't want to ruin all the work you just did. Alright, well I got that side pretty well in place. Now moving on to this side. I did use a scrap piece over there to get up to that point there. I'll show you that second piece that does need to be conformed in, but I got a couple of tricks I think I'll use on that. But for right now I just want to get this set into place. This will run up a bit longer into here than that one did, just because I was using scrap over there, which isn't a big deal. I think I can run this one all the way probably up into here, I'm hoping. Looking at the length, it should run right up about there. So what I did is I just took the template from that side, flipped it upside down, matched it up with the edges here, and I also, for a focal point for the template, I used this edge as the edge I was going to line up on with the template, just to make sure that it stayed straight. So I made these reference lines, so where that piece is going to slide in there is the reference point of how this is going to be orientated. So this one lines up with that inside edge, and then this I kind of had to eyeball the angle coming in on that, which is hard to do because placing it in there you can't really fold it down with the engine in place. So I'm going to draw this one out and cut this, and then this is just going to continue straight out. Now it does angle in a little bit here with next to the gas pedal and things like that, like this little piece, but not that much. It's not that thick. So if I have to trim this off just a little bit to get it to fit in here snug, that's fine. I just want to get a ballpark, so I'm just going to straight line that final edge there, coming from here all the way to the edge, and then we'll see where this whole piece will fall in and what kind of fitment it'll look like. as I'm fitting this in, see it's hitting up here. But that's fine. I mean, I can see my line here is pretty good, especially if I tuck this in. So I just want to get a general idea about where that's going to lock in. And then all I'll do is take off just a little indentation to start with, about right where that curvature in starts, and I'll take that out with a straight edge all the way up to the end, and then this should start to lock in better, and I can get a better feeling for what I need to cut out of here. So now as I go along, I'm just kind of making rough measurements with where I need to trim off some, just based on how it's fitting. You know, this is kind of folding up. I can feel this. This might have to come in further, but we'll see where that gets us. I got all that locked in, and we're getting close. It pretty much all fits up in there. That's fitting real nice. Just a little bit of a bump here, which I feel is gonna interfere with the engine cover, so I'm gonna sliver this off here, maybe a little bit into there, and then we'll see how the cover fits on, and then we can make adjustments from there. Okay, I'm actually really happy with the way this is looking. All I need to do now is cut out the slat for the latch, and then we'll see, just check to make sure that this thing comes down all correctly and I don't have too much strain on the clasp. And I think overall it's looking pretty good. Alright, well that sucker's snugged up. The clasps are closed and tightened, and the threshold's pretty good. Sure, I can get that carp underneath there. It'll just be a little bit more form fit, but that's what I want. I want it to hold the carpet down underneath this gasket here, and it's protected behind by that thicker gasket that pushes up against the frame of the cab, so that'll create a good barrier and a good seal between the engine there. So I'm feeling pretty good about this. Now, just a couple small pieces up in here. Get that finished up. I'm gonna cut this ridge line off, probably up to there, and I'll probably try to slot something in up here. Not sure how high I really need it, but just something to smooth it out. Maybe even one of these end pieces, but I might try to get a little bit further up there just to make it a little more uniform. So just a couple more pieces, and then what I'm going to do is take this all out and use this as my template for the carpet cutout. So it'll just make it easier. I don't have to go through and form cut everything. I'll just kind of make it a little bit bigger than this, and I could just measure it out, cut it out, everything will be good to go. It's funny how shit works out sometimes. I had to take this off because of the running board that'll be going in here for the insert, and this just happens to fit perfectly, or near perfectly. I had to shave a little bit off, but this thing's gonna fit perfectly to top off that. So that sometimes a little bit of luck, maybe some unknown skill, who knows. With my luck, it's probably an unknown skill. So now we'll take these notches off, because I don't think I'm going to be able to tie this piece in. This I just have as an extra leftover piece. And I think I'm just going to be able to trim this up, kind of slot that in there. Once I form fit that, make a few cuts to match it up. It should be good. The only reason I'm not keeping these is because I got to get this down so far. There's no way I can really lock those in, I think. So it's just gonna have to be a little seam there. I don't know. I could see if that would work, but I'm doubting it. Some of these folds are pretty severe once I get that down in there, so I'll probably cut those off quick. These pieces here, you are just gonna have to play around with. I have this scrap piece, so Really, I'm trying to get this pressed down in. I kind of lined it up. Not a perfect fit by any means, but it's pretty close. And once I apply heat to this and get this kind of formed in here and glued down, this should, with a few adjustments obviously, and probably some tape over the seam just to hold that down and together, that should hold down in there pretty nicely. So I'm pretty happy with that. Save all your scraps, because it's surprising how these little pieces can come together in a really nice way, and they're a lot easier to work with than a whole big piece. So if you can, try to make use of your big pieces in a way that will let you utilize the small pieces down the road. Well, you know what, the last scrap piece with some cuts is going to be able to fit in here. I am going to have to cut a little triangle for right here to fill in the space, but as far as usage goes, this ended up really, really well. Alright, now the thing I've been trying to avoid, but I'm going to need to drag in both the seats, lay them over the two back bolts, and I'm going to have to trace out the low points in the seat brackets just so that will fit better into the foam. I mean, I could probably lay it over the top on these and tighten it down, but I think the bolts in the back just aren't long enough. Something like that. I mean, how far is that really gonna tap in? I don't know. It might be enough. Decisions. So I did decide to go with the low point of the seat, just so I can get maximum bolt coverage. You don't really want to mess with that. So I'm going to mark around these with a marker, and then I'll cut those out. This will be fine. That'll have plenty of clearance. That can all stay there. I just need to cut little basically insert holes for that to fit down in there. So I just got one of these throw rugs and it's a 60 by 84. Should be pretty durable, and then I'll just lay out the template, which is the base, the foam, over the top, and then I'll make my cuts on there as appropriate so I don't have to screw around with measuring and doing a bunch of custom cuts. I'll be able to have a really good idea right off the bat.